Good morning. Today we have a special blessing and fun. I know this is going to be a fun time with Ruthie Gray. She is a podcaster and well, I guess you call yourself an Instagram coach. Is that correct?
Online marketing coach
Online.
specializing in Instagram and newsletter marketing. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think I am free to ask you this, but how old are you, Ruthie?
I am 58.
Oh, such a young child. See, because I'm 70. I say that proudly. I'm 70. I'm still walking and talking. The great thing, the reason I ask you that, Ruthie, and believe me, I have never asked any, but well, no, that's not true. I have asked some other young whippersnappers their age. But I think it's because of what you say your passion is. You are an online marketing coach, but you haven't been doing this your whole life. So,
Oh
what
no.
made you want to do that? And I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but why did you want to do that? And what was the catalyst that got you started?
Well, what happened was I started blogging about 15 years ago, and I've always wanted to write, and I've always been a writer. I've written for a local column in our local paper and things of that nature down through the years. And so I started writing, but I was spending hours and hours blogging, and I produced a couple of ebooks, and that was great. Had a nice sized blog, but my husband approached me one day, talk about a catalyst. He said, Ruthie, you are spending hours, probably 50, 60 hours a week
Wow.
on this. I know you love it, but you are costing us tax dollars. And why don't you find something on there online that you love, that you're good at, that you could develop a business around?
Mm.
And he's like, you have a $9.99 ebook. And I'm like, well, point well taken.
Leave it to our husbands. They're so practical.
Well, he is a businessman
Mm.
and he is good at his job. He's good at it. So he's very good at being a visionary and all that. So then I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. What are people going to pay me for?
Mm.
And I was in a blogger group, and it was suggested to me. We were at a retreat together, and the session wasn't about me. I wasn't leading any of this. And all of a sudden, everyone turned on me and said, hey, what are you doing over there on Instagram? Why are you doing all those stories and fun things? And how's that working out for you? I see that a lot of your followers are really engaged. What's
Mm.
going on? Is
Mm.
that something we should be doing? And I went home and I was like, I mean, I was like, took over the complete conversation
Wow.
somehow by
Wow.
default. And they were picking my brains, and I got home and I was like, well, maybe this is something I could
Mm.
do.
Mm.
So long story short, the opportunity opened up for me to start running other people's accounts, bigger
Huh.
bloggers and so forth.
Okay.
And it was very successful. They were
Wow.
doubling and tripling their views within the first month. And so I got really, really busy with that. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to run everybody's account anymore. Why don't I just coach them? So I stepped into
Mm.
that. And then it became a one to many kind of thing. And that's where I started opening up my online marketing school and
Hmm.
my membership. And so
Wow.
it just it became something that I loved that I didn't even expect.
Wow. Well, you are truly gifted. I've seen you work, and I've seen your Instagram. What I was thinking, it was interesting that you moved from being a one-on-one, like you were helping somebody else. That's a certain kind of gifting. But then also taking over and teaching other people, that's another kind of gifting. So don't you think one prepared you for the next? And also, I think when we try different things, it clarifies for ourselves what we're really good at, and not only what we're good at, what we love.
Absolutely. Um, Speaking of gifting, so teaching is my spiritual gift.
Mm.
And I've always known that, and I've used it in different capacities down through the years. But so at first, the one on one coaching, I liked it, but it was suggested to me by my business coach at the time, said, you can go a lot faster and you can make more dollars if you do one-to-many. Why don't you try that? So I did try it, and you're right. If you don't try, you won't learn, and you won't know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and what your superpowers are, basically, and what you can leverage so that you can offload other things. So
Hmm.
that's what I did, and I beta tested
Hmm.
what I do now, my trainings, 3 different times.
Hmm.
The first one was kind of like, that wasn't the greatest.
Hmm.
And so I let it settle and, kind of think about it, release the podcast. And then I came back with, okay, let's try this format. And that worked. And then I
Hmm.
repeated it. That worked. And
Hmm.
then I made it into the big official thing that it is now. So just
Well,
trying and testing.
I think anyone who is a coach, which you are, one of the things you encourage people with is to keep trying and to
Mhm.
try it a different way, perhaps. And that's what you yourself did. And I think I can get discouraged and I can just say, well, I'm just going to quit. I mean, what do you say to the people who immediately go, well, obviously God does, they bring the spiritual part in. God doesn't want me to do this
Mhm.
because I was a complete failure.
Mhm.
What can you say to encourage someone who's feeling a little stuck right now?
Well, I could say that I was a failure after that first beta class didn't go exactly how I thought it was going to. And in fact, I just sort of like backed off and thought, well, maybe this is not right.
Okay.
And yet, what I encourage people to do is what I did. I just kept coming back to the Lord, kept meeting with him, and I knew that I was onto something. There was something there that
Hmm.
I knew I could teach.
Hmm.
And so I just kept brainstorming the options and talking. You need counsel. You
Hmm.
need either a business coach or you need a mastermind, a mentor mind, whatever. And I had basically a mastermind. And that they're the ones that they were my guinea pigs, and they gave me the feedback that I
Hmm.
needed
Hmm.
and the support that I needed. And so that's what you need. You really need community. That's what I base all my trainings on, and that's how you keep from getting discouraged. You know this yourself. You're a part of the Christian podcasters community,
Hmm.
and the reason that we meet in community is because we need others to speak affirmation
Hmm.
and help and support. And like, well, maybe you should try this. This may not be working so well for you.
Hmm.
Here's a good suggestion. And so when we can get that input, instead of being alone and off to ourselves, as
Hmm.
we often are in the online space and in the
Hmm.
podcasting space,
Yeah.
if we can open ourselves up to that and allow others to speak to us, then we're better for it. And that's how we're going to move.
Yeah, and that is a life principle. It's not just for engagement on
Mm-hmm.
building a ministry or building a business. It's a life principle. We aren't supposed to do this life by ourselves. I know you preach that, and so do I. How do
Yep.
you keep your relationship with God on a growing trajectory?
Well, he comes first in the day. And
Okay.
so, God and coffee, that's my motto. I try to keep it fresh. I almost always read through the Bible every year. I have
Hmm.
a Bible that I read through. I love looking at scripture as a whole. For
Hmm.
years, I didn't do this. For years, I would just, jump from book to book or a devotional to devotional, but never really being able to read the whole Bible through and commit to it. But I finally stumbled across a Bible in a year at the Christian bookstore. And this was about 12 years ago. And I
And
thought, you know what, I'm going
which one is it? Is it called the Bible in
to,
a year?
yeah, it's called The Bible in 1 Year. And I can't remember who it was by. The one I use now is by John MacArthur.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to try this. I probably won't succeed, but I'm going to try. And it worked. It stuck. Like I was very into it because I could see Genesis, but I could see Matthew, but I could see the Psalms and the Proverbs. Oftentimes the theme, even though it really wasn't intended, was all the same.
Hmm.
And it just started making me take a big aerial view. This is why this goes with this. And
Hmm.
this is why this all weaves together and God's word does not contradict itself.
Hmm.
And so I love doing that. I love putting a spin on it each year and maybe doing something a little different as I'm reading. This year, it is focused on my word of the year, which is I, as
Hmm.
in eyeball.
Oh, okay.
I, eyesight, vision, but basically the word I. And as I read each day, I am circling the words that have I or sight in them.
Hmm.
There's so much I've already come up with, so much material. And then what I do is I take one of those verses or two and write them in my journal and a few thoughts about them. It's amazing what
Well,
when you focus on a
why did you
word.
choose on I? Why did you choose I?
Okay, well, this is funny. The biggest reason is I am focusing on my physical sight this year, as in I am hoping to have LASIK surgery
Mm.
because I cannot see. I can't see with contacts, can't see without contacts, can't
Huh.
see. I mean, not that I'm blind. It's just that I've reached an age where I just can't see correctly.
Hmm.
And my husband had cataract surgery a couple years ago here in Florida, and he decided to throw in the LASIKs, and he's never looked back. And I've just been so jealous this whole time. So I want to do that. And I was talking with the Lord one day, and I was like, I just don't know what my word is. Maybe it's I. Maybe I'm supposed to do that, but I'm supposed to also look deeper than that. Hey, what if I research scripture about I and maybe even had a different theme of the month or something like that? And that's how it evolved into
Hmm.
what I'm doing
And it's been a blessing already.
already.
Hmm.
And we're only 16 days in, right?
It's funny you said that because
17.
I had cataract surgery last Thursday. So
Yes, you did. That's right.
yes,
You told
and I
me.
have another one next Thursday. But by the time this comes out, I will have 20/20 vision. So I'm pretty excited about it. I you say that you were passionate about growing up in the second half of life. I love that so much. Actually, I repeated that to a 24-year-old at the gym this morning. I told her, "Oh, I do a podcast." "Oh, you do?" And I said, "Yeah, and I'm interviewing this gal, and her passion is to help women do entrepreneurial work and to be excited about growing up in the second half of your life. She's like in the first quarter of
Oh,
her
yeah.
life,
She's
not
a
knowing what to
baby.
do. So I just said, okay, let's have coffee next week. But I thought that's such a great line because I think people feel like their lives are over when their children leave home, maybe. I don't feel that way because I've been so busy, but I know people do. I've had people say, what do I do now? Because we love our children so
Mhm.
much and it's like such a full part of our lives. And then boom, they're gone. Or if something tragic happens, like our husband dies, or we lose our job, or we lose our health. And there's all different ways, things that happen that God knows is, God is aware, but we are not necessarily prepared for. So why did you come across this whole, I guess, a mantra, growing up? I have a whole retreat series, growing something besides old, because we're not supposed to just get old. We're supposed to grow up in Christ.
Right.
So,
Right.
so what do you mean by that? Elaborate a little bit.
Well, I was one of those that was my whole goal. Although I did other things and had jobs on the side, my whole goal was to raise my four children to adulthood, keep them alive,
Yeah, right.
and and make sure that they were functioning
Adults.
that
Mhm.
were a contribution to society, and that they were loving, and that they loved God and people. And so I worked very hard at nurturing our family. and my kids and my relationship with my kids and their relationships with each other. And then I was so excited for them when they were leaving home
Mhm.
and just cheering them on. And then the weirdest thing happened. The oldest went and left, and that wasn't too bad because she was only like 20 minutes down the road after she got married.
That doesn't count.
But the middle two left at the same time in two different states, and I felt this grief come over me, and I
Mm,
was not prepared for that. I
mm,
did not expect it. But I realized it was the end of an era, and I got really depressed,
hmm. For how
super
long?
depressed.
For how long?
It was at least a year.
Oh, wow.
And not only that, but I was fearful too for my children because they were no longer under my roof and I couldn't
Mhm,
watch every move. And they
mhm,
were driving on the interstate somewhere that I didn't know. And, coming home to empty apartments, they could be mugged or jumped at any time. All these things were going through my mind every night. And
mm,
I just, did weird things like I started finding myself staring out the window, just staring. Like
mm,
I'm not a starer. Like just unless I'm really thinking hard, I stay busy.
mhm,
Um, and I was watching football with my husband, which was really weird because I'm not a sports person. Now I'm turning into one, but it was just at first it was like, I don't know what to do with myself. My
mm,
life is over. I already accomplished my goal.
mhm,
This is the end. I truly thought that.
mm.
But at the same time, I had been blogging for a while and I knew that God was calling me to write and to be public with my blog, which I didn't want to do because I'm not a perfect person and I didn't really want people,
To know that.
knowing about me.
Mhm,
So that's how that all, kind of came about, is that I just took a journey, but I found joy in taking that journey and in writing and in others responding to my words and enjoying them. And I started mentoring moms. That was my first, big blog and gig and all that. And I got my joy back.
And you would say it came through the process took as long as it did because.
It took that long because it's just how long it took as far as God was concerned. He took me on that journey. And it took me a while to realize that life isn't over and there is still joy, and you can still enjoy the second half. There's still something more for you to do. So when I realized that, then I realized that, and I kept moving and transitioned, into what I do now. I realized that there are many, many, many women just like me that are in that transition,
Hmm,
and they don't know what to do when they grow up in the second half of life. And
hmm.
so I'm trying to help them figure it out.
What would be three tips that you could just give right now to someone who's listening, who's thinking, maybe that's just what's been wrong with me? I feel a little listless or directionless. Even the young gal I spoke with this morning, she doesn't know what to do next. But if you're talking to someone who's raised their kids or they're ready for a change, they just need a change, what tips could you give them just to lift them up, either spiritually or vocationally? Or, I mean, we would all like them to come sign up for your course, but they're not all meant to do that.
Right. Right. Well, I think first of all, you have to allow yourself the freedom to explore and dream.
What do you say more about that?
Sit down and jot down or talk out with someone, your best friend, your husband, uh, some things that you enjoy that you could possibly start doing.
Hmm.
For my husband and I, we started RVing before
Oh,
the kids ever left so that we could have something like that to do while they were gone. At first, I thought it was a stupid idea, but I found out I really loved it. So it wasn't so stupid after all. We're still doing it.
love it.
Um, But so think about things like that. Maybe you're not an online person, but maybe you love to crochet and you would maybe like to teach some crochet classes. Maybe you want to start with the women in your church
Mm.
or your neighborhood, or maybe you want to start a book club, or maybe you just want to be in one. So allow yourself to dream. For me, the dreaming was God had already started me on the path of the writing again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dreamed about, someday being an author and things like that. So allow yourself to dream. Of course, come to the Lord, ask for wisdom upon wisdom upon wisdom. And then as you are doing those things, kind of look at the threads of your life and the things that you already are good at and enjoy that you could possibly tie together, like sort of like a mind map. Use sticky notes or write it all, jot it all down on a piece of paper, see if you can connect some threads.
Hmm.
I would do that, but then I would also, and I hinted at it earlier, and this is kind of fourth tip, I would talk to someone else,
Yeah, I was going to
get
add.
some
I was going to add that.
feedback.
And I don't think it's necessarily true that you have to talk to your husband or even someone that close to you, but they do need to believe in you, and they have to know
Yeah.
you. They have to know you well enough to, well, for one thing, to be a sympathetic listener, but also to tell you the truth. Like if I told a friend that I was, going to be a knitter, they would say, you're crazy because you don't like to hold still. And, I'm a craft one and done person. But see, I've learned that from trying crafts, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But I know someone who started the Knitwits, which is a knitting group, and they're funny. They're funny like you and me.
That's amazing.
And they're the Knitwits only because this one woman said, she was a nurse, but she asked our organist, our church organist, hey, would you teach me how to knit? And so then they just, and she was very much an introvert. And my crazy organist friend is not. And she just had a great time. And then they ended up, it was like a club. And then they did things for like orphans or for foster kids. And it turned
Ah,
into a wonderful thing. But I just love it that it's called the Knitwits. And so
I love it.
really you can, and then another friend of mine, her daughter died suddenly. And for her part of her getting over grief was that she collects yarn from people, and she makes slippers for women who are in the prison system because she
Mm.
found out that their feet are cold.
Ah,
So, it
amazing.
kind of chokes me up. But I just thought, wow, there's a place for all of us.
There is.
And I think some are afraid to say that they need that coaching or they need that encouragement. They just think, okay,
Mm-hmm.
life's over. I'm just going to only travel in my RV and that's it, which I'm sure that's not all you do. But,
Mm-mm.
you know, our pastor says you don't retire, you retread. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll slow
Mm-hmm.
down before you because I'm older than you, but we retread a little slower perhaps. But someone said to me yesterday, oh, well, you're retired. I go, I am not retired, because I'm so busy. But I like it being that way. But not everybody has to do it the same way. Would you agree?
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's correct for sure because you're a unique individual. So your thought patterns and your hopes and your aspirations are going to be different completely from someone else. But you do deserve the right to explore the options and to dream still
Mm,
in this stage of life.
mm, I love that. You do deserve. That sounds good. You also write, as Christian entrepreneurs, we have a direct line into God for wisdom and guidance. It's both terrifying and exciting. Why did you? First of all, I love the fact that we have a direct line. And for anyone listening who doesn't know God, that's one of the benefits.
Yes,
Because, as you know, in James, it says, if you lack wisdom, which I do every day, by the way, I
me
need to
too.
ask him every day. I ask for wisdom, even going into this conversation and in talking to my kids or whatever, ministry, or actually just Our pastor spoke on evangelism on Sunday, which is not the usual sermon, but the how-tos and how Jesus did it with the women at the well. So I was thinking about that. And then I went to my exercise class, and here's this 24-year-old said, I like the color of your hair. And because of that, now I have her phone number. And so it's just a matter of asking questions and all that sort of thing. So there's always hopes and dreams and aspirations, and we deserve to look into them, not at the expense of our health or of somebody else's feelings, but why do you say terrifying and exciting? I can see why it's exciting, but why terrifying?
When you take those first steps, and really it could be about anything, but I'm going to speak to entrepreneurship for a minute because that's what I am. When you allow yourself to dare to dream and to charge for something that you think is good, but what if others don't?
Mm-hmm.
What if someone takes away from your product or your service and they start bad mathing you? Or what if you don't deliver and you thought you
Mm-hmm.
could?
Yeah,
That's terrifying.
it is
To
terrifying.
me, that is the worst. When I started the podcast, I was like, what if I can't deliver? What if this is a
Mm.
flop? What if it's no good? What if no one likes it? But I did it, and we're 50, almost 55,000 downloads 2.5 years later.
Mm.
So people do like it. People are sharing it. But every time that I take a big step or release a new training or something like that, I have that apprehension. And that apprehension continues just about every other night of my life. I'll wake up out of a deep sleep and think, oh no, I forgot to do this for so and so, or
Oh,
what if they don't like this, or what
this
if
is
I
such a
forget to,
comfort to hear this as a fellow entrepreneur. Such a
I
comfort
mean,
to
it's
hear
like
this.
the biggest thing right now is the 1099s, and my husband's breathing down my throat. And we had an actual conversation the other day about it. He's like, you have to get those out.
Mm.
And I said, but I don't like doing that. I don't like doing the money part. He's like, if you don't like doing the money part, then just just stop this and fold it up and write a book and just do that. And I'm like, but I love it. But I love doing it. I love my job. I love what I'm doing. He's like, you have to choose. You have to decide. You have to do hard things.
Well, I think that every job has its hard, tedious parts. And when I was moping the other day, thinking, I think I'm going to quit podcasting because of the tedious parts I was doing, I thought, wait, when I was a school teacher, there were parts I didn't like. As a speaker, there's parts I don't like. So as a mother, there are parts I didn't like. I mean, really, you're talking to young moms, lots of tedious stuff. So good for
Oh
you. So
yeah.
the terror comes in with some self-doubts. And then as things become successful, or you change your mind, then the self-doubts or the fear
Or God changes it.
dissipates. Right. Or God says, this really wasn't the right direction. This podcast is on legacy. I mean, I could guess what your legacy is, but I'd like to hear it from you. What legacy do you want to be sure you're giving those around you now?
It's probably twofold. The one is I don't want my kids and grandkids to, I want to leave a legacy of courage,
Hmm.
that I tried things and that I wasn't fearful and stayed in my own bubble.
Hmm.
And that is a real fear for me because I come from a long line of fearful people.
Hmm. Why do you
My
say that?
dad was my dad was fearful.
Hmm.
He took a failing grade in speech class in high school, on a speech. He just didn't do the speech because he was that afraid.
Hmm.
And later, the Lord got a hold of his heart and he committed his life to the Lord, and the Holy Spirit took over and he became a pastor
Wow,
and
that's a big
preacher.
difference.
And he was good. And he
Hmm.
led many people to the Lord who
Hmm.
became missionaries and led many other people to the Lord. And it's still going to this day. But his mother was the same personality as he and I. And she went the other direction.
Hmm.
And in her second half of life, she stayed in the house and she didn't go to church
Hmm.
and she didn't go anywhere. She wouldn't even go to the store.
Hmm.
She wouldn't leave. And she became a fearful person and worried about everything.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing is
You
that
start
I
you,
want
you started by saying, I don't want my kids and grandkids, and then you went the other.
to think that
Mm,
I don't want them to be fearful.
okay.
And I don't want them to let that hold them back in life. And then the second thing is, I want to be known for wisdom because I walked with God. And I want to pass that wisdom on. And I want my people to know that I walked with him, but I also want them to walk with him too,
Mhm.
and to let him be their direct line of counsel.
As a mom, as you know, we can't really author our children's faith.
Nope.
We just do the best we can when we have that
Yep.
meaningful day in, day out influence. And then after that, grown and flown, as they say. But
That's it.
so
The
many
hardest
prayers.
part.
It's the hardest part. I know I hate to tell moms of young children, oh, this is a snap what you're doing.
Mm-mm.
But you know what, Ruthie, they're watching us. And it's not just our own children who are watching us. They're watching us say, will Sue worry all night because, her oldest is moving to New York in February? Will Sue worry all night because the middle child is moving to Chicago in May? And they're watching me. And I thought, And I was telling a friend about that because she goes, are you nervous about it? I go, well, I was when I first heard about it, but my mom cried for a whole week when I lived in Brazil. I thought, why are you crying? I'm having a great life, but and then I went to Papua New Guinea and then I lived a mile high and I had to go on this windy mountain. Of course she was upset. And I thought, I'm fine, Mom. Don't worry, me and God. And so it's not payback necessarily, though I think she's probably laughing in heaven. But it's something we just give our kids to the Lord. As my girlfriend says, Sue, I gave my kids to the Lord at birth, and I'm not taking them back. They belong to the Lord. So what a wonderful legacy. It sounds like you already answered the question, what challenges did you have to overcome? But it's interesting that you are a marketing coach when fear was something that
Yes.
you had to
Isn't that
overcome.
something?
It is something. I mean, if you were just this funny extrovert who liked to teach the Bible, that's one thing. But the fact that you overcame, I mean, I think when I'm aware of my fears, that's when I can give them to the Lord more and have him
Mm-hmm.
help me walk through them.
Yeah. And the thing is, I'm an introvert
Oh,
and fearful.
a
People just
lovely
think I'm an
combination.
extrovert on online. But the other thing is that in the second half of life, many of us fall into the caregiving responsibilities.
Ah, yes.
And that happened to me 13 years ago,
Wow.
almost 14, at both of my parents at the same time. And I'm an only child.
Hmm.
And so it completely threw me for a loop. We're talking stroke, car accident, emergency surgeries, falls, breaks, passing out, all kinds of things.
Hmm.
It was absolutely floored me.
Hmm.
And I didn't like it and I wasn't ready for it. And I was still homeschooling my two high schoolers.
Wow.
And so I fought that for a while until finally God told me in the hospital room one day, Ruthie, this is the plan.
Hmm.
It wasn't my plan. It wasn't going according to any of my plans. This is the plan. I'm an only child, so I had to suck it up and say, okay, God, this is the plan. But how that ties in doing the hard things is even though you're in the caregiving stage, the reason I said you deserve to dream is because I think many caregivers in our sandwich season of life, where we're GGs and we have kids who have little kids, and we're helping them, but then
Mhm.
we've got adults, parents who are almost like little kids, and we're taking care of them. Everybody needs mom,
Mm.
but it's okay for you to have something of your own, because if you don't, you may go bananas. And I
Mm.
knew I was going to do that. And that's why my husband supported this move so much, this entrepreneurship, and why I carved out time and still do to do it.
Mm. Well, I think it's beautiful how the Lord nudged you. And it took courage to say yes to him, I would think, because you were talking about courage earlier, and then wisdom to follow suit and also to take care of yourself. I mean, I think we live too much so in a self-care society. We're always saying that about self-care, but
Mhm.
in this case, it's true. I mean, even I think about the tedious parts of work to make sure I get to do something that feeds my soul every day,
Yes.
that gives us the strength to carry on. That's the way God made us. The last question is, how does your life embody the welcoming heart of God? And I don't mean just hospitality.
How do I embody the welcoming heart of God? Well, it is odd how God has led me to this path that you wouldn't normally think would be something that would be from Him, marketing
Hmm.
and teaching groups of women how to market. But I work closely with Christian female entrepreneurs who are first and foremost kingdom minded.
Mm.
And they know that whether they're selling a hair product, or they're a seamstress releasing an online course, or they're a podcaster, or they're an author,
Hmm.
or they do any number of services, or they're a business coach, first and foremost, they know that they want to get out the message of the gospel of Christ. And so what I try to do is foster community and welcoming and networking in my free groups and in my paid groups, supporting each other to further the message, no matter what
Hmm.
your vocation is. And
Hmm.
these women realize that too. And so that is how I foster the welcoming spirit.
I love that. And God's all about that. Fostering the gifts that he's given us and helping us to not be necessarily successful as the world sees, but blossoming how he's made us to blossom. Well, Ruthie, you
Exactly.
are a terrific person, and what a great. Would you describe your course real quick, and then we'll put notes. Links in the show notes so that if people are interested in what you have to offer or just want to talk to you further.
Sure. It's Authentic Online Marketing School,
Mm.
and it is the blend of Instagram and email marketing. And we have a community where you get feedback, hot seats, all that stuff for your Instagram bio, your
Mm.
content, and how to drive traffic to your newsletter.
Hmm.
And you walk away with a newsletter welcome series and a newsletter template and ongoing swipe files, and so you're able to drive that Instagram traffic that you grow over to your newsletter, because newsletter is life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been told too. Well, thank you so much. You've been such an encouragement. And I know that maybe there's someone listening today who's going, wow, I have a lot to offer. And I'm just going to
Mhm.
sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and I'm going to dream. So if that's you, the listener, would you let us know? And then I can pass that encouragement on to Ruthie as well. Thank you so much, Ruthie. God bless you.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
It was fun.